Hello there, product people. Welcome to the show that supercharges your abilities to become better thinkers, makers, and leaders. I'm your host, Alsawi, and I'm thrilled to have you join me for this exciting episode of Product People. In this episode, we'll be exploring all things design systems. So whether you're a designer, a product manager, a software engineer, or simply someone curious about scaling design capabilities, you're in the right place. As always, you can expect an honest conversation, valuable insights, and meaningful advice that can fuel your own journey with product, design, and leadership. Let's dive right in. Today, I'm joined by Diarmuid MacCormack, a design practitioner, system thinker, humble soul, football lover, and global professional. Originally from Ireland and now based in Montreal, Diarmuid brings with him over 25 years of experience in user experience design. He's dedicated the past decade exclusively to the domain of design systems with industry experience spanning various sectors, including retail, financial services, healthcare, media, and telecom. Diarmuid's superpower is scaling design capabilities to deliver faster customer value to the market while bringing others along for the journey. Outside work, he's the father of two adorable children who were kind enough to allow him to come on this podcast today. Without further ado, let's welcome Diarmuid to Product People. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Alsawi. The honor is all mine. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Before we get started, I think it would be great if you can share a little bit about your upbringing, your family influence, perhaps your background on how you got into design in the first place.
Oh, very interesting question. I haven't revisited that in a while. Yeah, how do you even start in these things? I'm from Ireland originally, of course. I'm from a family, 3 siblings, my mom and dad. And I think I was the first, in my family, myself and my brother, we both went to design school.
Mm-hmm.
And so art and design is definitely in the family, in the blood. My brother's really, really talented 3D artist and painter. And for myself, yeah, I think I noticed in school, there was certain things I was really interested in, and one was geography. The other was, and I actually traveled the world since, but geography and art. I always had a gravitation towards art and design, and my teachers saw that as well. I remember I went to the career guidance counselor in my school,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of a mandatory half-hour session where they go through all the paperwork for university, and they talk about what you want to do. And I remember I was waiting outside the door, and there was a queue of students waiting to go in to see this professor.
Okay.
And I went in, and I literally said he had all these. I saw the books in front of him. There's science, and I saw accounting, and stacks of paperwork for there's agricultural science, all kinds of wonderful things.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I just want to do something in design." And I remember his eyeballs just rolled around the table in front of him.
Really?
And he just put out his hand and said, "Best of luck. I don't have anything." So that was my career guidance, was 10 seconds of good luck. Best of luck with that. So yeah, I kind of knew it was going to be a long journey from there to try and craft a path for myself. And I did.
It's awesome. So I'm trying to piece this together: geography, art, design, the career counselor story, the interest in the vast aspects that you kind of touched on, and I'm taking notes as we speak. But I'd love to maybe start with the basics. Just setting some foundations here for our listeners. So when we talk about design systems, what is a design system, and perhaps who would need one, and why would they need it?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and you'd probably get a different answer every time you ask this question. And it depends who you're asking the question to, and it depends who's looking at the question and who's trying to answer it as well. Whether you're a product manager, you're a designer, you're a developer, you're a business owner. Everybody would probably have a different answer. But for me, I would say It's all about being concerned with the relationship of parts that affect or that work together to affect the function of the whole. So, like systems in general, it's a relationship of parts, and with design systems, you're concerned with the parts that function to produce products, digital products. And I say it depends who you ask the question to, because if you ask it to an engineer and they're building out a coded design systems, they'll have a different answer. You speak to a product designer, he'll have a different answer. She will have a different answer what a design system is for them. And the job of a design system person, designer, or design system lead is to bring all of those answers together and help the business, developers, product designers, everybody involved in product to understand, first of all, what a design system is, to answer that question for them, keeping in mind all the different possible answers that they'll expect to hear, and to demonstrate to them how a design system will help bring all of their understanding together. So they can be on, as they say, the same page, that expression, help people to be on the same page building products. And that's what a design system team does. Basically, they look at all the parts, what the developers need, what the designers need, all of the visual communication that's captured in what we call a design language, captured in tooling, like, for example, Figma or Sketch libraries, so product designers can do their jobs, but also captured in documentation, like guidelines, captured in tools like Zero Height or captured in Storybook for code. It's really just understanding all of these disparate parts that you need to function together to create a product. And then the design system becomes a product that serves those products.
Okay. I guess what I'm taking out of this is being able to not only define what a design system is, but also interface or have a different frame when you're explaining it, and what it means to others that will be perhaps people that are benefiting from it or even building it. And so I'd love to get your perspective on the process of first identifying the need. Does everybody need a design system? Or is there a process of identifying the need to build a design system? And then if you can walk us through high-level steps involved in building one.
Yeah, it's a good question. Like, would you need a design system? I'm a very practical person. That's the first thing I would say. And words are concepts. So I always try and push through the jargon as much as I can and get to the solution of things. Like, what is the problem? The kind of things you learn in design school, like pure fundamentals. What is the problem before us? What are we trying to solve, and how do we solve it? So that's the first thing I would say to anybody. It's really understanding what the problem you have before you and how something like a design system could solve that problem. Well, what could that problem be? Well, a design system, how it would present itself as an attractive solution to a business challenge is it would promise to be to help scale production, efficiency, and speed of product design. So you could demonstrate before and after system. You could show how efficiency in speed, how designers access their tools, and you can actually cost that out, how much more efficient and cost saving it is to create a product design with and without a system. That's one way you can show the benefit, like say a cost benefit or efficiency benefit. And like that's what then you can present to the business if that's exactly where the business is struggling and they see, okay, we're spending this money, things are probably not moving as fast as they should. What can help move our products along? And the design system is definitely something that can come into the conversation to help with that.
So here's a counter argument, not to just be controversial by design, but I think to also generate maybe a good conversation. You spoke about design throughput and the ability to scale up design capabilities and speed to market and efficiency. The counter argument that you hear sometimes from designers is really around how some designers might think that a design system takes away from their creativity to solve a problem. So
sure.
I'm sure, I don't know if I can say, but I'm sure you probably heard this before, and I wanted to hear from you. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, first I'll say is I'm a product designer myself. So when you introduced at the start, I've been at this almost 25 years. Yeah, I'm a pure visual designer. I studied visual communications. That was what I studied at university. And I'm a product designer and user experience designer at heart, focusing on building out user interfaces. So I can definitely see where there's a natural tension between being creative, as we say in quotes, being creative, and we'll talk about what that means even, and being given kind of rules and guidelines and a kind of a fence around where, the kind of boundaries are with what's safe to work with or what you've been giving with or what the guideline is and where you break away from that. I think a really good designer works better inside constraints. And I'll tell you why, because what you need to understand about anything that is built or sorry, designed is it has to be built. And any digital product that you interface with that any customer, any of us out there interfaces with, it's the developer that brings the experience to the customer truly. It's the design team that interfaces with the development team to translate their concept, help the developers translate that concept into code, but it's the developers that deliver that experience. So the designer is working with business, trying to solve a problem. A good designer who's working within the design system, if that design system is set up right and it's interfaced already with code, so the development team would have built out that design system in code as well. So now you have a replication of your design in code. Now, a designer using the design system will know that and know that anything that they're creating outside of that is cost, right? So the developer has to build something custom. And if you're building something custom, you would have understood the patterns so far. And that's what, one of the big offerings of a design system is a pattern library. So a developer or a designer should know intimately all of the different user interface patterns, so the UI patterns for any component in the system. Take like a modal window, a pop-up modal. They'd have a good understanding of all the different patterns of that modal. And if they solve a problem, they're being creative in quotes, and they break outside the system and solve something, or they solve for modal, but it's bespoke and custom, they know there's going to be cost to that. And the business is going to be concerned if there's cost to that. So they need to be very deliberate about offering that solution. And I think that's where the difference is. Yes, you can be creative, but knowing that you have to be incredibly deliberate and you have to speak to the problem you're trying to solve, and you have to demonstrate that what we have today can't solve that problem. And then that's that's what we call a candidate that could be promoted back into the system for other designers to use. So we have that concept of dry, do not repeat yourself, even in design, where that bespoke solution could now be identified as a pattern in itself that's served back into the system. So yeah, I would say the design system is not set up to limit people. In effect, it's actually set up to help people. It gives them a safeguard to be more creative. Ironically, and it takes a bit of time when you work with a system, and a good system, and a system that does have it's set up for contribution and promotion, and it has a good community around it. It actually does work to serve creativity.
You touched on this briefly, but I would love to know from you a bit more on the steps. So think about someone who've never built a design system before. Maybe this organization is new to design, perhaps it's a startup, and they're thinking, okay, give us the high level phases or steps involved in building a design system.
Yeah, it's I'd say the first thing a company would need to do is do a UI audit. So what is a UI audit? It's taking inventory of what you have today. So looking at all of your digital products, understanding, is there any inconsistencies in your product? Like say, for example, in the past, I've done UI audits where there would be many, say alerts, error states. And there would be different shades of, say if it's red is the shade of the error state, and it'd be different shades of red. And sometimes the modal window is outlined, and sometimes it has a shadow, and other times it's text only. And it creates noise inside your user interface design. And that reflects poorly on the experience for a customer. So how you would discover that is by doing a UI audit. So you would actually take your digital products and see, for example, take feedback or alerts and see what the experience is like across your system and see if it's consistent and identify where there are inconsistencies. That's the first place I'd say you would start. It's about, doing a kind of an audit of where you are today. And that's your starting point for trying to understand how big the system is going to be, if you even need a system at all. And that's important too, is to actually establish if you need a system. Again, it's to be a product that serves products. You could argue maybe like a small studio or an advertising agency, would they need a system? Do you need a design system for every product an agency would push out? You know, if it's, say, they're doing a website, does a website need a design system? Is it really just for, you know, bigger products, bigger enterprises, say like the likes of, say, a bank that would have many products, hundreds of designers and engineers? Yeah, you got to kind of figure out the scale of your operation as well. And there's many other aspects as well. Like I have this system I use myself. It's kind of a 12 point system. And I could talk a bit about that. It's what I use to kind of keep all the pots on the boil when I'm building out a system from scratch.
Okay. So you said you start with a UI audit. Is it fair to say then that you would design first, systemize second? And what I mean by that is, for someone who's building a product for the first time, let's say it's the first product of a startup, there isn't anything to make a system out of yet. So would that be applicable? Would we be thinking about building a design system before building products, or is it the other way around?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like I go back to, well, what is a system again? Like what are we trying to build? And it's the relationship of parts. So what are those parts? That's the real key question here. Now you can be a single designer on a single product in a small studio somewhere. I'd argue, do you need a design system really? Like what is your concern of the relationship of parts in that case? Like, is it just something you're kind of just want to get out, meet a brief for a client, get it done, maybe give them a style guide, you know, like colors and brand to help them on their way? That's not a design system, right? It's guidelines with a product. But I would say to truly understand what the benefit of a design system is for your business, you would have to again go back to the understanding of oh God, I forgot the question. Sorry, you're gonna have to edit that part out.
I was don't worry. I was mostly asking about, you know, would you need one? Like you were talking about the parts, the parts and the whole. Do you build the parts first, which is maybe like the different products, and then you think about systemizing them, or do you start by thinking I'm building a system here? So which one comes first?
That's a very good question, Elsawi. It all depends. It all depends. If you're building out a system from scratch, you could say, okay, I'm building out a design system from scratch. And again, you're concerned about the relationship of parts. And remember, you're building something to help your product design team put their best foot forward. Imagine, like, for example, if somebody joins a team, a new hire, if the product designers that have gone before already on the product have started to build out a product, and they've already started to systematize it from day one, there's a better chance of somebody onboarding, picking up and understanding what they are to grab to help them on their first product. Because we have already understood the patterns, identified the patterns, we've captured them in a single document, a library, like a library in Figma, for example, and we've documented how it's to be used as just a pure necessity of building out the design system. You document as you go. So there's a perfect example where, from scratch, from day one, you can build out the system, understanding that you're going to have more designers coming on board, or the product's going to scale. Then it's wise to do that. Now, that might not always be the case, like in a small studio, where somebody's just kind of banging out, products for a client, and they might give them a style guide or whatnot. They might not have the time to build out a system, or it might not really be in their consideration, or even budget, right? The client might not be paying for it. So yes, it all really depends. Like I've worked on systems where the products were already mature, and they realized that they couldn't scale because there were disparate files all over the place, and they didn't know what a text input field really was. Like, what's our single source of truth for a button, or for a modal window, or so in cases like that, that's when you do the big UI audit on what they have. You put it all together, you abstract it out, and then you kind of nail down a system. You're making the relationship between all the parts, and you're creating something that's going to function as a whole going forward for the design teams. Yeah, so I'd say like that's really the answer. It depends. It depends on where your company is, but you definitely can start a design system. You can jump right into the deep end. That's for products that are already there, or start from scratch.
Okay. I'm sure, based on your experience, you've seen, I don't know if I should say hundreds or tens of design systems. You've seen many design systems. Let's keep it at that. Many design
Right.
systems. And I'm thinking, when you're looking at a design system, there must be some sort of an evaluation criteria that would say this is the quality that I'm seeing of a design system. So you probably would group some as mediocre, maybe some are average, some are good, and some are great. And I want to understand from your perspective, how do you evaluate the quality of a design system?
Oh, again, big question. How do you evaluate the quality of anything? I guess it's first of all, you have to know the value in it for you, what you're looking at, because it might not be of any value to anybody else. So yeah, always when I'm looking at a design system, I'm looking at how to capture that relationship again. It goes back to that, like what are the relationships of parts? And for anybody who's listening to this and knows deeply, their tooling inside out, say Figma or whatnot, you'd be concerned how they connect all the dots for the designers. So do they link up their textiles, layer styles? Do they, when they've created out the component, have they encapsulated it well? Have they considered all the possibilities of that component? Like deeply considering the user experience of that component, to make it as easy as possible for the designer. Like, have they considered all of the latest features in Figma? Again, using Figma as an example, like Boolean controls and layer properties. Have they really deeply considered that out? That's the kind of things I'd be looking for. And it's a good question because you see a lot of, and I remember this was a challenge, and for folks coming up into the industry as well, the eye candy effect, right? Show me your portfolio, see what you've done. I kind of get chills down my back when people put so much emphasis on portfolio and eye candy, and like it's not necessarily like a design system looking good, and we can talk about that, the presentation layer of a design system, but it's that relationship of parts, it's that problem solving, it's that encapsulation, it's that forecasting. It's a lot of bravery as well, because you're kind of forecasting, you're putting yourself out there, you're kind of putting yourself in a position for all the design teams, speaking on behalf of them, though they're your client as well. They're your first customer. So yeah, it's a lot of that. You kind of got to understand how things are built, how well you think, without speaking to the person who built it. You're trying to get inside their brain, inside their head, and see, okay, have they considered this? Have they considered that? And then I have questions coming in. Like I said, well, how have they done, their text inputs, for example, or how have they approached this? And now it's like you have these layers of, local variables and tokens, and have they tokenized their system? And if they have, what tools have they used? Have they used Token Studio? Have they just relied on local variables? Are they relying completely on styles? And really understand all those relationships as well. That's on a kind of a practical level, of a design system. And then there's kind of there's other levels of a design system that make a design system really attractive as well, and it's the support around it. Like some systems have massive support, and you can see that in the work they've put in with the documentation online. I'm thinking of systems like Shopify and Spotify, and the IBM, the Canvas design system for Fluent, Microsoft, I think is Fluent, Spectrum, Adobe. Huge amount of effort into the presentation and documentation, and that's attractive as well. Look for that.
Diarmuid, I did hear the doorbell. Do you need to get it?
No. Sorry if that came. Yeah, I don't even know if you can edit that out. These things you can't even plan for, right?
Don't
in
worry.
The middle of speech.
Don't worry. If you're good, we can carry on.
Yeah, we're good. It was Amazon. I saw the guy in the corner of my eye.
Okay. All right. So when it comes to quality, the answer was multifaceted. I heard from you things about how components connect together, how they're encapsulated, how do they deal with variations. You also spoke about ease of use. How does it align with the purpose to begin with? And you kind of also walked us a little bit through what are the ways that some of these relationships and system thinking is applied within the design system, and also the support that a design system might have. So it seems to me like, the criteria is big, and the answer is obviously it depends. Perhaps it's a little bit subjective, which is why I was asking to make it maybe more objective. maybe one day we might have a way to grade and perhaps show these qualities of a design system beyond a portfolio, which is really an outcome, because a portfolio doesn't really, like you said, it gives you a bit of the eye candy, but it doesn't really give you the essence of how it was built. So there's definitely an interesting nugget there that I want to maybe explore further. But before we do, and I think we're going to take a short break, and when we're back, I'll be asking you about something you mentioned earlier. So I'll be asking you about the 12-point systems, or the 12-point design system criteria.
For sure.
And I want to learn more about that. So let's go on a short break. And when we're back, we'll be, talking about that 12-point system from there. Hey there, my amazing product people. If you're trying to find your own story with product, design, and leadership, gain a new perspective on being human in a soulless corporate world, and possibly have a good laugh in the process, you can grab your very own copy of my latest book, Product People, A Journal of Laughter and Tears. It's available on Amazon in all formats right now. Happy reading. All right, let's continue where we left off. I wanted to ask you about the 12 Ps, or the 12 points. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, sure. So like everything else, I guess frameworks are important in your own mental models, right? To try and negotiate the world and life and how you even get these things done. For me, I have this system. I call it the 12 Ps because everything starts with a P. Purpose, people, preparation, practice, process, and presentation. It's like, what is he talking about? Production, performance, progress, participation, partnership, and promotion. Now, I bracket these under, there's a build section and a maintain. So, and this is kind of an infinite loop. So you're building, you're maintaining forces you to build, you're maintaining what you build. So this is kind of infinite loop. In the build phase, I have my purpose, people, preparation, practice, process, and presentation. So this is all about, as we spoke earlier, about actually how, why do you create a design system? What's the purpose? What are you creating this for? So the purpose is very important. You need to know why you're creating your system, the reason behind it, why it lives, why it exists, why you're sitting down in that office or on that. If you're at home now these days working for this company, what's your purpose there? People. So that leads into the people around the system. Are you the only person? Like I've been in a situation where I was the only person building out the entire system. Have you people with you? Are you on a embedded team? Have you got development support? Have you got dedicated developers? Preparation of the system. Preparation is all that background work. It's meeting with stakeholders. Isn't that a funny term? I've never. It's always kind of itched me that I can just picture people walking around the office with big stakes and hammers in their hands, looking to stick it in somewhere. So the stakeholder idea. You got to kind of prepare the system. You got to prepare, have presentations. A lot of time is spent selling the purpose, selling like the questions you asked me earlier. Like these questions are asked all the time. What's the point? So a lot of time goes into preparation in the early stages of the build. Practice is how we put it all together. So do you work with Jira in sprints? Are you sprinting with the development team? What tooling do you have? How do you go about creating a design system? Like what kind of spirit do you have on your team? What kind of, stand-ups in the morning, or do you kind of let people just work and trust them to do the work, and we catch up every once a week? We can talk about that as well. I've strong opinions on that, by the way, about daily stand-ups and working and trust levels in companies. And the best companies I've worked for are the companies that have had the less meetings, the less interaction with people. It's crazy. Like, this is a job, get it done. Is it done? Yes or no? I like that, but we can talk about that again. Process is everything. As a process is similar to practice. Process is more about how we document, release systems, semantic versioning, how we communicate what we do, ceremonies in Jira, or how we, our processes of actually working together, are working with stakeholders and working with business. Presentation is that big layer I was talking about, the look and feel of a system. That's your eye candy. You're kind of that helps with promotion. It helps with all those other areas of the maintenance aspect of the system I'll talk about now as well. But the presentation is huge. I do put a lot of time into the presentation myself. I think it's very important because I put a lot of emphasis on experience, the user experience of a product. And going back to your original question about what do I look for in a system that's attractive to me, and it's who has deeply considered the user experience of this. Like, what do you mean? Well, I mean, who uses it? Like, what's the experience of the person interfacing with this? How are they getting? They need to get a job done. Is this helping them get their job done? And having those communications with people, having those conversations, trying to figure out where, let's say, their pain points are with this thing to make it work for people. So I moved from the build phase to the maintenance phase. Now, again, I imagine these as 12 little pots that I have for a truly good design system. You kind of have to put energy and effort on all of these often, in the maintenance phase is the massive one is production, of course. That's my forte is in the production. I'm less about the other soft kind of skills. I need a lot of help on that. I'm a production heavy person. I like to get stuff done. Do you know what I mean? I just like to move. I like to get stuff done. I like to take risks. I like to take ownership. That's very important if you're taking risks. And I prefer that. I prefer to be accountable and get the work done. Performance of the system, massively important. Performance is everything. It's how weighty the system is. Does it cause crashes in your browser? Is it, again, the performance of just the user experience of it, measuring that? Like, is it efficient? Could it need more love, more work? Is it scalable? Like, how does it actually perform as a product in the world out there, in the space, in the environment that's meant to alleviate stress and, help efficiency, scale, and speed? How does it actually measure up? Progress, that's part of it as well. But progress is more your timelines, your roadmaps, your expectations, not only for business, but for yourself, for your own sanity. So I can kind of keep a track. And I can talk about that, the ADHD thing, when it comes to design systems, about people who need to identify patterns and it gives them kind of a comfort. We can talk about that as well. Participation, again, participation is people interacting with it, who contributes back to it, who works on it. Where is that participation coming from? Partnerships, that's part of it as well. So partnerships with your business, but with your development teams, most importantly. Like, you got to get those development engineering partnerships solid within the design system team, because it's symbiotic. They feed each other, and they need to be a well-oiled machine together. Like, the taxonomy is the same. There's a common language that's understood. It helps with translation. It helps with trust between design teams, because we naturally like to just silo off and do our own thing. I get it. Do I have to follow that guideline? Do I have to work with that person? Do I, if there's any friction at all, people move away from pain and move towards pleasure, right? If it's a pleasure to work with something or with someone, you're going to gravitate towards it. You're going to more than likely kind of pick up that call again. If it's friction, you see that, meeting on your calendar, like, oh God, here we go, do I have to, have to kind of negotiate this? You can avoid all of that by just putting attention on these things. So I do put attention on partnership. And then the big one of all of that kind of partnership, participation, and performance is the promotion of the system, getting it out there. Who's using it? The adoption. Is adoption climbing? Is it falling? What do we do about that? How do we promote the system? How do we promote it to people who are not even on our team yet, or not even in our company yet? How do we, is it public? Is it private? How do we attract people, into, like if you see a really good company that has a really good design system, and if you're a product designer, that definitely plays a part. It plays a part in bringing you into that company, I feel. If they have, a good system set up, that's going to help you get your work done. So yeah, these are my my 6 build and my 6 maintain pots that help me keep my eye on the ball if I'm leading a system, say.
Wow, that's fascinating. As you were kind of talking through them, the 12 P's, you call them pots, points. I understood them more of a
pillars,
way.
12 pillars. Yeah.
Okay. I understood them more as guides to perhaps to an intellectual inquiry, a conversation that you're having with yourself as an organization or as a group of people, where you're asking yourself with each P, depending on, I guess, the context or the stage that you're in, whether it's build or maintain. But I took it as that kind of guide to that intellectual inquiry, also a bit of a process, because process is one of the P's, but maybe this is more of a meta process of not just building the design system or the execution part of it, but maybe a bit higher, but also an element of a framework. And I think it might be a little bit of all of that, as I kind of heard you describe them. Is this written up somewhere? Like, did you actually make this public where other people can benefit and go back to that 12 P's system?
It's a good question. I definitely conceived it, but I haven't produced it anywhere. It's just something I kind of use my own mental model. I love mental models. It really helps me. Mental models and everything, really. It helps me. But no, it's something I should probably get maybe if somebody out there can help me understand how to get a Medium article up there, maybe. I think that's what everyone goes to these days. That could be a good idea. Yeah, there's a lot of this stuff out there, though. There's a lot of, there's a lot of really good people out there working in this space and mental models and mapping. And it's a very interesting idea.
Yeah, well, definitely you can count me in. If it turns into a book, I'm going to be one of your first customers.
Well, it goes back to the ADHD thing. Books. Actually, can I touch on that a little bit? It's funny.
Yeah, go for it.
I was speaking to somebody recently about this as well, and it's something that I've noticed myself in my career, and it's this attention. I actually think attention deficit has been a grace for a designer because when you're forced to think outside the box, as they always say that, think outside the box, and this lateral thinking, it's kind of a glorious wide open space to be in. If your mind is jumping around from concept to concept and idea to idea, you can get very creative in that. And it served my career well. I remember when I used to work in advertising agencies years ago. When I was living in Australia, and I worked for an advertising agency there, and back in Ireland as well. And you're trying to make connections and unusual connections to come up with campaigns and concepts. And I think that helped. Helped to kind of be less of the focused state and more of a kind of a loose. I'd say it. I would say attention deficit almost, just so you could actually broaden your horizons, and it definitely helped. But I find with design systems, it's had the opposite effect on me. It's helped me focus in a way I've never been able to focus before. And it really gives me a comfort to work within very strict perimeters. And especially if I'm creating those perimeters, because I feel, okay, I'm creating these for the design team. And I know how flighty designers can be because I am one, and I think it actually helps with that. It helps with focus. And I spoke to somebody about this recently as well, another design system person. And it's funny, they're like, yeah, this seems to be a common theme in people who are really, again, this is just my theory, kind of drawn into pattern recognition or focus into system thinking. I think there's something in that. That book isn't out there. If somebody listening to this can recommend to me or come back to you on it, just help me understand that. But there's something in there, something in design systems and pattern thinking and ADHD. There's some connection.
Wow, that's fascinating. I think you make a connection here between design systems as a system of thinking, not just as a system of design, and sure, how it relates to bringing that focus and maybe a set of constraints that are sometimes needed to put some of these patterns into place and make them repeatable. So I think, yeah, definitely a great connection there. I wonder, just as we're kind of expanding our conversation here, sometimes you want to ask that meta question, the thing that is maybe bigger. And I want to understand, if a design system is meant to be a system that helps you increase your design throughput, get to market faster by using, as you described them, different parts, and being able to curate or solve problems at scale, which makes the whole. Is there a design or are there design systems for design systems?
Oh, that's a good question. Are there products for products?
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess in this case, the product that is for product is the design system, right? Because you mentioned earlier that it's a product that helps you build products. And I wonder if, go ahead.
Well, you have like the concept of multi-tier or multi-level or multi-brand systems. So that probably could be that could fall into that bracket, I'd say, where it's systems that support products. It's definitely a more complex system to build out and maintain and support. And you have to have kind of really understood your centralized model for supporting that. Like there's different models out there, like a federated model, so on and so forth. So you'd have to really understand the business you're in, and if there is a need for systems that are a satellite of the main system, say, or even their own systems, but they need to, in the interest of, again, like scale and efficiency, and do not repeat yourself, if they need to borrow code or borrow, design from other products, then yeah, you have to make that, again, go back to the relationship of parts, understand what is the relationship of parts in this connection between systems. And then you could have a design system that supports a design system. Again, it goes back to that question, like, what do we need to do here? How do we solve this problem? What are the tools to solve this problem? What options do we have? And if a system that supports a system is what's needed, then that's what you build.
I wonder if a product like Figma, for example, or I guess DSM from Envision, or maybe Sketch even, will those products be considered to be design systems for design systems? Because at the end, the people working on these products are, in effect, building a product that helps people build design systems that in turn helps designers build on top of.
Yeah, it was like that definition, like I said, a product serving a product, right? So that's a perfect example where it is a product serving a product. If I'm working on a design system inside Figma, and Figma is the product serving my needs to build out a design system, and I'm sure there's a massive design system behind that product. There's a design system team for sure, supporting that product, Figma, and that product then is helping me build out my design system. Yeah, for sure. So that could be a very interesting example of a system. I guess I was thinking more of a direct integrated system with systems. But what you just mentioned there is more of like an API idea, as in like the interface between the design system team that builds Figma and your design system is actually Figma itself.
Yeah, you know what this conversation reminds me of? It's do you know the problem of infinite regress?
No, I've not heard that.
So it's the idea that when you look at contingent things around us, things that depend on something else, and thinking about how each of these things depend on something else, and that thing depends on something else, and that thing depends on something else, and so on. I think the problem is best demonstrated in the idea of, let's say, a sniper in a movie. Let's keep it at a movie level, who's waiting for an order to fire against the target, and they're waiting for that order, and the person that they're waiting for is waiting for their order, and that person in turn is waiting for their order to come, and so on and so on and so on. And the question becomes, if you have this going on infinitely, will the sniper ever get the order, or will the bullet be ever shot? And I guess that's the problem of infinite regress. At some point, you need an uncaused cause, or something that stops that infinite regress. Otherwise, you will never have that action happen. And I guess that's where this question kind of reminded me of, well, is there a design system for the design system? And for that design system, is there a design system behind it? But anyways, I think I feel like I'm going on a tangent here. But
no, I think you've inspired some other thought in me, actually, and when it comes to infinite regress, because I think about going back to what I said about accountability and being brave and vulnerable, and thinking on behalf of other people to get stuff done, and moving. There is this you call infinite regress. Is that what you said? Infinite regress. Yeah, I'm thinking about the amount of people that need to make decisions to get things done. And I think if I was speaking to somebody young moving into this industry, or design, or product design, or design systems, I'd say to get into the habit as fast as you can of being brave. They always say ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. Yeah, but don't necessarily wait around for the answer. I think they don't add that part in. Like, ask the questions for sure, but if you're not getting the answers, act. Act and move, and you learn from how you move. It's all experiential. And I think about this waiting around for answers, and waiting around for the infinite kind of falling away of passion. You have a passion to get something done, and this infinite regress, and it disappears into the ether. People who are further and further and further and further removed from the original request, and the passion gets stretched out like an elastic band being stretched out, right? The worst thing that can happen is somebody just lets go of that band and comes and whacks you in the face. But you can be a step ahead of that and you can just let it go out and give and prepare to just move yourself anyway, getting stuff done. Like, what do I mean? Like an example of, if we change this thing in design system, the modal again, change this modal, and you see the request for it and you see how it's going to solve, because you're very close to the system, how it's going to solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But the amount of loops you have to go through to get people involved and on meets and on calls, and then there's another person who wasn't there and they have to have the meet, and then there's another person who is totally in a different department that they just want to be in the call because they have nothing to do that Friday morning, and suddenly it's ballooned out of proportion, right? Whereas you could have gone ahead, send out the request with that infinite loop, but go ahead and solve the solution yourself. Maybe in the background, have meetings with the devs, yourself, propose a solution, caveat by saying this is out to the business. It's on my own time. I've done this even. This is out to the business. They're going to come back with a solution, but what do you think? And often than not, I've seen in my career, then they make the call, right? So you're 5 levels removed now, but the dev you spoke to is only 1 level removed. But you didn't know that, right? It's possible only 1 level removed. And then they mention, oh yeah, I saw the solution that guy came up with. And suddenly that person that's 8 steps removed is the one who has to make the final call, and it's passed right back down the line. Whereas if you had waited and just sat back on your hands, you'd be behind now. Yeah, I'd say with people out there, like people coming into the industry, is a big one for me is to be vulnerable, to say I don't know when you don't know, to bring just a lot of soul into what you do. Passion's a huge word, right? Passion's a huge thing. We're lucky if we have passion in our work, and that's true. I won't be arrogant to say, you should be passionate in your work. I'm lucky I am, I'm very lucky, thank God, that I'm in what I do, that I like it, I like the space I'm in. But that's come through me forging ahead, making mistakes, but making mistakes with accountability is a big difference. There's one thing to make a mistake and not own it or kind of shy away from it. Like own it, like suffer the abuse if it comes your way, because that's how you're going to learn. Honestly, it's but as long as you chalk it down to that every time, it's like this is all a learning experience. It's be confident. Your confidence grows from that as well, and you're being, the most important thing is your integrity and your authenticity, right? If you're authentic, even saying that if you're authentic is a weird thing to say, right? You're either authentic or you're not, And I think if you're passionate in your career, that's going to come out. It's going to come out because suddenly it's not necessarily about pleasing people or doing the right thing in somebody else's eyes. It's about demonstrating your passion, and through that you demonstrate your expertise, and your expertise is gained from being vulnerable, being authentic, and allowing yourself to make mistakes with accountability.
Wow, that was fascinating. We went from infinite regress, but you got me where I actually had this question that I wanted to ask you about advice that you would give to people out there that want to become designers of design systems, and you answered that question. You started by speaking about the element of bureaucracy that goes into decision making. You touched on how consensus building, while it might be helpful, but when it takes a lot of time, it can also remove a lot of that passion and deter you from making progress. You spoke about change management one way or the other, although maybe you didn't mention it explicitly. But you also touched on the ability to make mistakes and owning them and learning from them and evolving by time. You also touched on authenticity, and you kind of took us through a lot of the things that you say mental models, but a lot of the frames that people that are interested in becoming designers of design systems would be looking for. While we're on it, and I wanted to kind of unpack a little bit more, is there any other advice that you would like to add to how we got here on, helping other people to become designers of design systems? What advice would you, in addition to what you mentioned, what advice would you give them?
Oh, there's lots of advice. Yeah, lots and lots and lots. Learn, I'd read lots content online, like YouTube videos from other from conferences. Tap into tap into community out there. There's a great one, Design Systems Slack channel that I'm a member of. They have like Design System Wednesdays. You can join local chapters. Go on meetups.com. Look up a meetup for design systems in your area. Not even in your area. You can join meetups anywhere. I'm joining a meetup in Stockholm soon, in 2 weeks' time, and I live in Montreal in Canada. So I would say that just get involved in the community, ask questions. I know people who are bold and ask questions, to people who maybe you would think is untouchable. Like it's like in every career, and it's a funny thing. And I've had to get my head around this, and maybe you can help me with this, Alsawi, as well. like we tend to put people up on pedestals. Now, some people, yeah, like they're fantastic, they're great, they're thought leaders, whatever, right? I know a guy, for example, close to design systems and what I do, and he would say a conference, like a config is a big one that Figma do, and he'd see the speakers on stage, and it's like he was like an almost an Apple product reveal, right? A huge auditorium with 2,000 people, and the speakers on stage, and you would think, oh, I would love to contact that speaker to ask about. And this person, I'm on a call, and he said, yeah, I was speaking to that guy who was on stage last week. I was talking about his product. I'm like, wow, like I'm seeing this guy as a rock star, in my eyes, like an untouchable. He's got security guards, and he lives in Beverly Hills, maybe in my mind, right? And then this is some guy just working in an office like me, right? But having the bravery to, I think that's part of it. Part of it's being brave, being confident and being brave. Be. I'm going to say this word. People don't like this word. The PC culture. Be stupid. Be stupid. It's the most. It's a huge feather in your cap. Ask the stupid questions, because no question is really stupid. I've had a challenge with that through my career. I bet I shouldn't ask that question, or I shouldn't approach that person. And like we all poo, we all pee. We all wake up in the morning groggy. You have to drink our coffee. We're all the same, right? Humility is very important. Just have it, and also seek it in others. Because I think it's important too. And you'll find out there is a lot of people who are willing to share. I've met some great people. Just recently, there was a fantastic girl in the Token Studio office who helped me with a design problem and challenge I was having. And, she gave me her time, explained everything, how to use the product, and incredibly generous, incredibly knowledgeable and generous. And I was just lucky that I reached out, I would say as well, as if you have in your career people who support you, lean into that. In your office space, even. Like I've worked with great people, like great managers, really, really honest people with integrity, and who I genuinely felt it supported my career and my trajectory, and recognizing the ones that don't either. You will meet people who will treat you bad, who won't respect what you have to offer, and they might show that they do, but they probably don't. And it's kind of having radar for that too. Like you develop that over time. Don't be too sensitive, is what I would say to people. Like again, it comes back to passion. If you're focused on what you love, you're focused on where you want to go. You're sharpening your saw, as they say. Have a little plan in your mind as well, like 2 years ahead, 3 years ahead. Where do you want to go? No one's going to stop you, only yourself. Truly, like in your. But what I mean by nobody is going to stop you. Of course, there will be people who will discourage you. Absolutely, in life, there will always be. But there are definitely people who are going to encourage you, and try and lean into those people. Like I said, I've been lucky. The ones that have come across in my life that have supported me have been fantastic. I would definitely tip my hat to the great managers I've had all along.
Wow, that's a lot of great advice. Thank you for sharing, Diarmuid. I took away be confident yet humble. I also took away recognize great leaders when you find them, and have the courage to be vulnerable, as you said, to be stupid sometimes, and understand that there's always a risk, but have that element of courage in seeking out answers and in growing. And maybe with that, I want to ask you, speaking of change in general, we see a lot of talk about AI and how AI is becoming prevalent in even the use of design tools. And I wanted to ask you, how do you think it changes the role of designers in general, but also the role of designers in creating and using design systems?
Oh, that's a huge question. I guess everybody wants to know about, automation. I would say, for me, I think it's exciting. I'm in the business of identifying patterns. I'm in the business of encapsulating design decisions in components, to help product people build products. And I'm sure artificial intelligence can help with that, with a lot of that automation. Like I think you're going to see, and we already do see a lot of plugins that automate repetitive tasks. You have plugins that extend feature sets of the tools you're working in. Already, I've seen tools powered with AI where you can actually just type in or even voice command what you want to see. Like give me a header and a footer, a column, a grid with 4 columns and 10 rows. I think that's efficiency gain. I think the whole concept of theming as well, it's going to be massive, multi-level branding. If you can have AI doing some of the heavy lifting there, and of course documentation. I'm sure there are lots of people using ChatGPT for documentation right now. I've actually done this myself where I've ChatGPT has helped me create a plugin. So literally by just asking ChatGPT a few simple questions, I've created a plugin for myself to do a specific task in Figma. So yeah, I think it's great. If we're talking about AI specifically for design systems right now, with the short vision I have ahead, I see it as a good thing. AI in general, I've no clue. I've no clue what's going to happen. Who knows? Who knows?
So maybe at some point we will see a design system creation documentation bot of some sort, where perhaps first it augments a design system lead, but maybe it goes a bit further. Who knows? I guess is the question. I'll leave it open. I want to hear and maybe like switch gears to kind of wrap up a little bit, but I want to hear stories. Stories resonate with people, and I want to hear a story that maybe brings an indicator of design and design system immaturity in organizations. I like to take extremes just to demonstrate a point. But if you can share with us a relevant story where you maybe worked with an organization, you don't have to mention the name, but it was very clear that the design maturity within that organization was very low, and how you're able to find out.
Oh, it's a big question. It's a big question. Who? Yeah, going back to to answer this question, I'll have to kind of skirt around it. Going back to my mental model. So no matter where you are, and this probably goes out to anybody out there who's working in design systems or new people coming in, every environment's different. You could find yourself, in a financial institution that has its own challenges. You could find yourself in a retail store, e-commerce that has its own challenges. You could find yourself in a medical business, and find yourself in an agency. So they're all different, and different challenges and different levels of maturity, different understanding of what design even is. So that's the first thing, is trying to understand what, if you can at all, what understanding does this company have about design? You can see it, the visual, the kind of obvious aspects would be its public presentation. You can get some insight into that of how they value design, or if it's effective or ineffective, in your eyes, with your experience of design. But when you get into the weeds in a company, it's a very difficult one, Elsawi, because you might have lots of very talented people working around you and in your space who are trying to get things done, and could be inhibited by management, by tooling. Like when I said tooling, it could be in a place where there's massive security is the most important thing. So your tooling is locked down completely, right? And you're really struggling to produce. You could be in a company where it's the opposite. You're wide open to do anything, but the communication is not good in a company, or the management, using the right talents. Using is not a good word. Like promoting the right talent in the right place for the right project at the right time. Like that's a skill in itself, and you don't see that, and it gets frustrating. The wrong people working on the wrong projects at the wrong time. that can definitely show immaturity in an organization. It's a hard one without kind of being very judgmental, because when you come into a company, you have to remember, like, also they're paying you for your skill, right? So you're coming in as an expert into a space, or we hope you are, coming in as an expert. And it's like walking into a restaurant and everything's set out for you, and someone's going to meet you at the door and walk you to your table, and everything's great, the lighting's fantastic, the food's great, the company's great, everything's great, right? That's not reality, right? You walk into a company, you log into the HR portal, it crashes, or you can't log in, or then you have to who do I ring, and IT support, and that's not even before you get to the design, right? That's just friction, a lot of friction. And then you find, okay, well, where are you on your design maturity? Well, what does that even mean? Well, where's your design system? We don't have one. Okay, well, that's a good place to start with. You don't have one. Okay, so what's your appetite for one? Well, we don't know. Okay, so then you got to kind of figure out, well, why am I here? It goes back to purpose again, honestly, right? So you go back to, this is why these 12 pillars, honestly, they really helped me out, because I'm like, and I don't really care. I mean this in all sincerity and humility. For me, I'm passionate about my career. So for me, it's like, why am I here? Like, what's the purpose? Where do I fit in here? Because I want to fit in. I want to do my work. I'm passionate about what I do. I'll do this anyway, but you guys need to know what you want out of this relationship, right? So for me, I very quickly kind of find out where a company is in the maturity in design, or where the maturity is in design systems. And for me, it doesn't matter what answer I get back, because then my job from there is, okay, I got a bit of work to do here, or this is going to be great, If I got a bit of work to do here, then it's just about me. I love talking to people. I don't like meetings. I hate stand-ups, all of that. I like just getting one-to-one, real one-to-one, no agenda. Of course, when I say no agenda, we're all at the workplace. There is some kind of agenda. We're trying to get work done. We're getting paid, But as little as possible, just like I just want to figure out what's going on in here. I want to figure out where we are. I have this job to do, design system. Just want to see what the appetite is, where we are today, how much work is in this. I'll get answers from everybody, as many people as I can, and then it kind of will rest on me. Then I'll sample the business. I'll literally stick my tongue out and sample the business. Before speaking to high management, because a lot of cases, trigger warning, everybody, people don't know what the hell's going on. A lot of times, management, they don't know what's going on, right? People above them, they're paying the people below them to know what's going on, right? They definitely don't know what's going on. So you kind of have to you have to throw your net out wide and get a feel for where you are. So the first thing goes back to accountability again. When you say, like, how do you test the the maturity of a system and the maturity of a company? It's kind of, I put it on the person coming into the company to kind of spend a lot of time figuring that out. Like, don't expect to walk into the restaurant, be shown to your table, and the meal be great. It's not going to be that way. You're going to have to put in a bit of groundwork and try and figure it all out, and then see, when you figured it out, see where the company is with their design. And their design doesn't have to be like an amazing, like breathtaking, blow you away design. If they want a design system, it's still creating the relationships of parts. Like, I can give an example. You asked for an example. Like, I did work for a company who didn't have the design system at all, and it was I came into the company to create the system. And well, when I said it didn't have a design system, they did. They had a nascent system, but it didn't wasn't kind of integrated with the development team, and it wasn't helping their product designers. They're still siloed off into, they had pods. They worked in a different pod structure, and it was fantastic. They had this structure in place, but they weren't using the system as it was built, or it wasn't built in a way that helped them get their work done. So I came in, did the audit, established a relationship of parts, and started to create the guidelines and identify the patterns and build them out for the product designers. And we started to get traction on that. But when it came to integrating with the engineering team, it was an enormous battle to try and get them to engage with the system, to say, listen, product designer happy now. Like, they have this kind of momentum now, as they're passionate about it, and they're using the system, but it falls short when it comes to the engineers. And for anybody in the call who probably doesn't know what that really means, is that designers would design, and they would usually hand over what we call visual specs, or specs, to the engineering team who build that. So they translate like colors to hex values and whatnot. They translate. But there's a better way of doing that. You can actually inject yourself into their space. For example, like with design tokens, and all design tokens, again, is jargon, words, all words are concepts. Just design token just means it's just a kind of little bite-sized piece of design. So it's a design decision. It could be color, shape, a radius, padding that's captured in what we call a key value pair. And the values can change, between teams if you're teaming. But basically, it's a JSON file, JavaScript object notation, I think it's called. A JSON file that you can now inject through GitHub or whatnot into the developer space. You don't have to worry about translation now. So you're kind of removing all of that cognitive load. Have to read specs and could get something wrong. They're just consuming. They're just consuming what they know. Again, it's experience, right? They're in the code space. Give them code. Now they're not looking at a spec. Now they're just consuming what you've given them, and you own that code as well because you own all those design decisions. So it's a huge efficiency gain there, huge. But this company didn't get it. They just couldn't get their heads around it. They just didn't see the value in it. Now it's partly, did I sell the value? Could I sell the value? I felt, I was a one-man shop, so I kind of I had a lot going on, and the product designers were benefiting anyway from what we're doing, but trying to sell it, and that's an example where you kind of go, okay, my hands are tied here. This is not going to work for this business. Like they don't see the value, or they just don't have the investment of the time and people into what we're trying to do here, and it's going to fall short here. And if it falls short here, then you're going to still have these inconsistencies going to the customer. And the whole idea of a design system is to help alleviate that. There's many benefits to the system, but one of them is to alleviate those inconsistencies falling in, like the example of the alerts with all the different reds I was saying at the start. You want to avoid that, because if the design system team, if the product from the design system team, the actual design is in lockstep with the code, then there's a far better chance of the experience from design being realized right through to development. But yeah, that was one example where I knew this, they were going to pull the plug on this project, and they did. They pulled the plug on it, and that was disappointing. They could have had a far greater value than they realized. Yeah.
Wow. You touched on so many things here. You touched on friction, tooling, leadership, communication, products, purpose, integration, inconsistencies, and realizing value. Just reading from some of my notes, not to mention some of the fishing metaphors around casting nets and feeling for why you're here. And I think that answer give a lot of perspective. And I thank you for sharing that story. But I wanted to lastly ask you perhaps a more straightforward, easy question. What's the best way for people to learn more about your work and connect with you?
Oh, you saved a simple question. It's probably the most difficult. Saved the most difficult question to last. I'm not very good on the old social media and promotion, self-promotion at all. I have a website that just has some resources up there for people, and that's icancreate.systems. Very, very simple. So it's icancreate.systems. That's how people can reach me out. I'm also on LinkedIn. It's just LinkedIn /in/icancreate. I guess these links will be up on your page. Yes. And that's basically the best ways people can get in touch with me. I'm active. My tag is icancreate. You'll see me inside the Design Systems Slack channels. In there's icancreate. And that's probably the best way people can reach me. There's also great services out there. You just remind me with this. There's ADP List, I think it's called. It's a mentorship program. I've jumped onto that. I've met some great people in there. I'd recommend people do that as well. I haven't signed up as a mentor myself. It's something I want to do next year for sure. That's something I would recommend people jump on as well. If not with me, there's many great people in there that offer, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour call. That's all free. It's their time. It's their kind of a gift to humanity, I guess. But yeah, just reach out. I love to chat. And
All right. Well, this was fun and insightful. I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today, German.
The pleasure has been mine. That's Howie. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care. I want to express my gratitude to our wonderful guest, Diarmuid MacCormack, for sharing his valuable insights on the topic of designing design systems. Our conversation revolved around the importance of understanding why and when a design system is needed, the process of developing and maintaining it, and the relationships required to ensure its successful implementation depending on organizational context. I found Diarmuid's metaphors, insights, and authenticity to be refreshing, meaningful, and practical, and I hope you did too. I want to express my gratitude to all our listeners. Your support means the world to me. If you found today's episode valuable, please hit the subscribe button, leave a review, or share this podcast with your friends. I also encourage you to share your feedback and your ideas on what topics you'd like to hear about next on this podcast. Your input is very important as it helps me learn and improve. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes, and until next time, stay courageous, creative, and compassionate. Take care.